All right, now speak.
Oh, yeah, I guess having the microphone plugged in would be helpful. It's determined to spin.
It's not gonna help at all. You're like, I'm just gonna rotate this. Okay.
What we need is like a lazy Susan, where you can just spin it at twice the rate that it wants to.
Apologies for the technical difficulties on the stream today. We're good.
Okay, we're ready?
All right. Now, in order to spread it out as much as possible, here.
All right.
All by myself, just like in real life.
Welcome to Dharma Punx. The topic tonight, you ever just like forget about Buddhism? Just forget that it exists? Yeah, me too. The online suggestion was doing too much, and so I think that a lot of us can relate to this. Sometimes I have this visual of myself that if I had a thread connected to every group chat, every email, every person, every task that what that is demanding of me and my brain and my overall functioning. And that's one of the reliefs I find in meditation retreat. I don't think that I necessarily clocked that initially. Initially, it was just like, oh, all the meditation, and that's so great. But being able to cut off a lot of those threads and the amount of relief allowed me to remember more often. I think mindfulness can be synonymous with remembering, just remembering that we're doing this practice, that we're on a path. And in day-to-day life, often my own experience is that I can have so much going on that it can be difficult to also remember the practice. It can also be difficult to remember that there's a point, that there's a path that I am on and that I'm pursuing. So one of the things that I have found, especially in the past couple years, in the doing too much category, grad school, parenting, all of the things, is that there's a tendency to lean forward into the next moment. That I can be driving my car to pick up my kid, but planning the next thing before I've even arrived at the location. I'm going to be, what am I eating for lunch? What am I going to do after that? Trying to choreograph things in my brain. And the side effect of always leaning into the next moment is this lack of mindfulness. Also, I like that one of my teachers, his name is Seho, he characterizes the core of what we're doing here is trying to triumph over anxiety. And in my own experience, even though often anxiety is characterized as a fear response or a worrying, even that leaning forward is a type of a low hum anxiety. Because we don't trust ourselves on some level to be able to fulfill the task without having it all constructed beforehand. And what happens when it goes sideways, when we can't follow the initial plan? We go, blah, we freak out, right? We get easily frustrated because we had everything planned meticulously. And then the cat shit on the floor. It's over. We're done. So, looking at this low hum of anxiety and being able to turn toward trusting that there's something else that I can instead remember. Mindfulness, I can remember. I'll speak a lot more about this after the meditation. But I believe one of the things that we end up trading because I don't think that it matters how much we're doing. I think it matters how much we're remembering while we're doing. And one of the things that we trade when we decide to stick to this anxiety is joy. Just joy. And I think that if any of us were to say, like, you know, what was the function of beginning the Buddhist practice or beginning meditation, maybe it wasn't joy, maybe it was just freedom from suffering, but hopefully, you know, as like a sidebar, there would be joy. And being able to find that space more frequently. So I'll leave it there for now. And as a discussion for today, talk about what brings you back. Like, what is that? Have you experienced a phrase or a place in the body when your mind has gone off? For me, it can be a number of different phrases because in my own experience, my mind is very adept. And once it kind of figures out that, like, I use this phrase to be mindful, it's like, it's not going to work anymore. I'm bored. And so I have to come up with a new phrase. So currently, my phrase is, what if we were just present? And that gives me an opportunity to, one, bring it in as a question. And then sometimes I actually have a response. Well, actually, I do have to plan. I am at the grocery store. I need to think about, what I'm getting. But often when I ask that question, there's a release. Other times it's been a single word, such as harmony. Other times, reflections on death have been really grounding. Life is not certain, death is certain. Sometimes locating two parts of the body. I've gone through periods of time where just like focusing on my teeth just focusing attention on my teeth to be very grounding, partially because it helps me unclench my jaw too. So what is it for you that brings you back, that reminds you what's most important? Yeah. And so if you're on YouTube, you can meditate on the topic or journal. See you in a bit.
microphone back on.
All right. All right, let's meditate. Beginning this meditation with setting an intention. Sometimes we come to places, come to meditation out of habit. And so there's an invitation to establish wise intention. To recollect what it is that you're going for, that you're hoping to cultivate, that you're hoping to remember. And as you establish that attention, let it ring out. And the breath emerging from the silence. The breath at the foreground. Even with sound present, letting silence be in the background. If the mind is fleeting and antsy, you can extend the exhales. Relaxing the body. Scanning the energy in the body for spaces that feel particularly activated and charged. And allowing the breath to move in and out of that space. The mind is having a hard time settling, dropping in your phrase, what if I was just present right now? Getting strung up in thought, sometimes there's a subconscious feeling that the thought could be more important than the breath. That if we don't jump into the thought, that we might lose the idea, lose the pleasure, lose the plan. We're busy, moving all day long, and we have this opportunity to rest the mind. Why not take it? The subjects for frequent recollection can be grounding, all that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? I am the owner of my karma, heir to my karma, born of my karma. Whatever karma I shall do for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. Knowing these, why not treat this very moment as the most important thing? As the most endearing. And watching the breath. Breathing in, know that we're breathing in, breathing out, know that we're breathing out. We watch life. We watch existence. The days and nights are relentlessly passing. How well am I spending my time? All that is mine, beloved and pleasing, will become otherwise, will become separated from me. I am the owner of my karma. Abide supported of my karma. Whatever karma I shall do for good or for ill, of that I will be the heir. if our minds are concentrated, mindful enough. Sometimes you'll find that joy arises spontaneously. That joy is the byproduct of noticing reality as it is, absent of greed, hatred, and delusion. Sometimes the mind, once anchored, needs a little more coaxing, and you can begin gladdening the mind. If these natural words, phrases have not done so, exploring for you what gladdens the mind. Be recollecting generosity, a benefactor, simply smiling on the inside of your lips. Just continue opening to it, noting and opening. Opening, opening. Recalling the intention that you set at the beginning of the meditation. An intention that requires effort, energy. Kindly assessing did the effort and energy match the intention? Kindly. If it was, great. If not, this is also fine. This gives us information to carry forward, turning this into wisdom. Welcome back. I'll begin with a story. Ajahn Brahm, I love Ajahn Brahm stories because they're so silly and dumb. So this story comes from Ajahn Brahm. It's an iteration from Ajahn Chah's The Dung Beetle, if anybody's familiar with that story. The story goes, and this is just Ajahn Brahm made this up. This is not like suttas. This is not anything like that. So Ajahn Brahm tells the story of two monks, and one monk is very austere, does the work. The other monk is what you might say is wily, a troublemaker monk, and they both, stay at the monastery until they pass on. And in Buddhism, there's rebirth, and the idea is that you get rebirthed into possibly different realms. And so the one monk gets rebirthed into a realm where, like, shit's just pretty good. Shit's pretty good. And the other monk is nowhere to be found. And so he goes looking for his friend in the different realms. And he was like, well, hopefully, if nothing else, at least a human realm. Like, that's a great place to get enlightened. Couldn't find him in the human realm. And he was like, maybe dogs and cats? Looks at all the dogs and cats. Fuck, where's my friend? And so he's like, it couldn't be, but like, let me check the fucking critters. And so he checks, and sure enough, he finds his friend rebirthed as a worm. And he's just, having a good old time in a pile of shit. And he looks at his friend and he's like, whoa, dude. Where I'm from is pretty fucking cool. You should come with me. It's pretty cool there. You should come. And the worm monk now is like, well, does it have this smell? Does it have this taste? And he's like, no, dude, surely fucking doesn't. And he's like, well, then I won't go. And, through much trying to convince his friend to come along for the ride, he is unable to remove his rebirthed friend as a worm from the pile of shit. The analogy is the way that in our human existence, we have a tendency to cling, to attach to things that are full of dead ends, that there is a path, but we rather just say, it might be a pile of shit, but it's my pile of shit. Or, like the worm is so delusional, doesn't recognize the fact that it's, having a love affair with a pile of shit. And that it's difficult to wake up and to see clearly enough to know that there's something different. And I bring that up with the doing too much. I said earlier that one of the problems with the doing too much is the way that the mind is probably going twice as fast as you are going. That if you are going 60 miles an hour going through each day, the mind is going 120, if left unchecked, if without mindfulness. And so the idea is that, one, we're either not aware, or we are aware, but we are so convinced that our pile of shit is working for us that we stay there. And because I think if you investigate in your own meditation practice, you might find while planning does create that low hum of anxiety, whether it also is kind of mildly pleasurable. Isn't there something like kind of mildly? I know I get seduced all the time. Like if I'm on meditation retreat, there's like 3 fallbacks, and one of them is like planning tattoos. Just like if I'm really bored, I'm gonna plan some tattoos. And hopefully one of the things that might have come up for you in your own meditation practice, maybe today, maybe not today, maybe the conditions weren't so to make it happen, but that there is an access point of joy if we remember to slow the fuck down. And that doesn't necessarily mean you have to move mountains to, at least in my own practice, I've just gotten off a 3-month renunciation practice of trying not to take on more shit, which I think was wise. But if anything, it doesn't matter. One of the things that as I've been reflecting, it doesn't matter how much or how little I'm doing if I'm not present. And so that being sort of the pivot point, as I've, over the past couple years in grad school, doing all of the things, have tried an array of different strategies to employ, like ADHD strategies, all kinds of things to try and like manage everything. And what I find is that mindfulness always fucking works. Sometimes I forget that it can be applied to all things. If I investigate enough, it can be applied to all things. And so letting go of this pleasure that is unfulfilling. I think it's like if you've ever driven, obviously you've ever driven, when you day to day drive down your street to wherever it is you're going, you take that same way every single fucking day, and it's a smear of color and signs, and you kind of just like block it all out, and even sort of scientifically, like the eye just can't catch it fast enough to process the amount of color and detail that actually exists in that object or scenery. But then if you walk down the street, and maybe if you walk down that street slowly, you might notice things that you had never noticed before. You might notice, like actually those leaves are brighter than I ever imagined. You have given your mind and your eyes an opportunity to slow down, to actually process what is being seen. And so even just from a scientific standpoint, this makes sense. It's not, at least what I've noticed within my sort of autopilot self, the status quo, which is to like just change the channels as fast as I can, like 20 tabs open going at any given time. To sort of like just click through whenever there's a dull moment. And I think that's one of the other things, is we're afraid of space. We're afraid of the quiet. And so we have those 20 tabs open just in case there's a dull moment. We're afraid of space and boredom. And so this is, again, where an encouragement to something that my teacher doesn't teach very much. He teaches appreciative joy, but I personally have found it useful in my own practice, and I don't talk about it very much because I don't know always that I have the appropriate Buddhist words, if I have them set correctly. But based off of my own practice and my own experience, what was missing often in my own practice was this, at one point in the meditation, I said, gladden the mind, which is a really common phrase in the monks, like the monks say, gladden the mind all of the time, and you're like, fucking Ronald McDonald over here, I guess, I don't know. And in my meditation practice or in my day-to-day, what I would find is this sort of pattern of like, okay, I'm going to, mindfulness is happening, I'm remembering to come back. Maybe there's a little bit of investigation, pleasant, unpleasant, neutral. Maybe there's, a determination that happens. I'm reestablishing my determination. I've said some sort of phrase to help ring it out, and then not long after, the mind goes off again. And part of that is just like fucking normal, like that's me and everybody else in dealing with meditation. But there are additional steps that can be provided through the 7 factors of awakening. The 7 factors of awakening start with mindfulness, investigation, and energy, which I feel like are the really common 3 that like most of us in some level of meditation, I feel like we have down. And not that this list has to be linear, but I do find that they build off one another pretty easily. And the next one is this concept in Buddhism called piti, which is synonymous to rapture or joy. But it's more than that. Those words don't particularly mean anything to me. I've heard piti be interpreted as endearing, which I like, because it's a much more tangible that I have this object, whether it's the breath or whatever I'm meditating on, and then I begin to gladden the mind. And suddenly I might find the object endearing. Like there's something about my relationship to this object that is endearing. And there's degrees of piti, like I'm not gonna go, the piti is often very much associated with jhana practice. This is not this talk. But sort of the tangible, usable experience of what can I do to counteract the busy mind. It's to remember that there's something else that I'm missing. That if I'm engaging with this type of mind, I'm missing out on this opportunity to just fucking have joy. Because isn't that like what we're doing anyway, is trying to like check off all the things on the fucking list so that way we can be happy? And then that list never ends. It's just like keeps fucking procreating check boxes. So pity in this context, there's a lot more to that word, but this idea of the endearing and taking that moment as the most precious, as the most important possible fucking thing that you could be doing, which, if the version of me when I first started meditating heard that, I don't know if I would have loved it. I talk about sometimes that one of the first books in Buddhism that I read was by Thich Nhat Hanh. It's called The Miracle of Mindfulness. And specifically what I remember of that book was Thich Nhat Hanh being like, you're gonna sweep and you're gonna be mindful, and you're gonna poop and you're gonna be mindful, and it's gonna be awesome. And I'm like, why the fuck would I want to be mindful with those stupid mundane tasks? Can't I like sweep and then also fantasize about things that I like? And you can, but through enough practice, and maybe this is something that you will just have to see for yourself. In my own practice, I find it to be empty. That I can make up these fantasies while I'm doing the dishes, but there's something so real and technicolor when I'm able to access those deeper points of meditation in my day-to-day life, not just on the fucking cushion. A meditation teacher I know, and I'll end with this once, and I don't know, I still don't know if I fucking believe him, but it's an interesting concept, and it relates to the sort of like scientific, like so you slow down and you see things better. You see their details, you see the truth, the reality, right? So that when we're zooming along, we see smears of experience. But we got into this conversation, and his point was, this is not a pro-psychedelics thing, but he was saying that all that psychedelics do is take apart the mind enough so that way you're actually seeing things as they are. I don't know if that's scientifically fact. He said it, he's a really smart guy. I still have my doubt. But if I even just see the difference of how I notice things when I'm going really fast, how I notice things if I'm going slow, and how I notice things if I'm going real, like things just change. And that's, I think, one of the magical pieces of meditation retreat and monastery stays as well, is when you can sort of get past the boredom, right? Just like I'm bored, I'm sitting, I'm bored, I'm walking, I'm bored, I'm eating. There is a profundity of richness in the moment. And I think I don't talk about it as much because it feels as though the commonality of things that bring us together is the suffering, and talking about the suffering is important. But the last monastery stay I was at, there was a strong encouragement to also remind people that there's happiness on this path. And from pity will eventually settle, because sometimes it can be quite like, there's a monks that can do this like party trick. One of the symptoms of pity sometimes is like you'll get goosebumps. And so there's like monks that can just be like, goosebumps, pity, pity. But it settles into relaxation and turns into happiness and contentment and turns into equanimity, which is kind of enlightenment, so don't tell. Yeah, I'll end it there. Questions, thoughts? Any questions also on the stream? That was a big download. Okay. Cool. Well, then let's talk about Donna. Donna helps pay rent. However, everything offered here is supported by is freely offered. But yeah, appreciating any support. $5 to $10 suggested donation. Announcements, I don't have much information on it yet, but planning a winter day-long retreat. So if anybody has just any thoughts, I mentioned before that I could make executive decisions about like, this is what the retreat is about, and this is when it's gonna be, and this is where it's gonna be. I can do that. However, I like when things are community-based and collaborative, so open to having that. And then we'll dedicate the merit. May any goodness that was gathered here today be spread above and below, to the seen and the unseen, to those being born and to those who are dying.